terror attack on the World Trade Center Twin Towers on the 11th of September 2001, commonly known as 9/11, was the deadliest attack on U.S. soil in American history. The most widely seen images of the incident are of planes and iconic high-rise towers and people running for their lives. Remember the frightening visuals of two planes smashing into New York's World Trade Center. Nearly 3,000 American citizens were killed. More than 6,000 were injured. This 11th of September 2024 marks the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. The Al-Qaeda plane hijackings were the biggest foreign attack on U.S. soil since the shock attack at Pearl Harbor in 1941. The World Trade Center incident shattered the sense of national security that the U.S. had since the end of World War II. We revisit the fateful morning of 9/11 and look at the happenings that unfolded that day. What were the targets? Who were the attackers? How did the U.S. respond? What about the men accused of the conspiracy? And why is the case still in limbo? All these and more on this week of We on Wide Angle. The morning of the 11th of September 2001 was not about blue New York skies. But about black ash, fire, and death. 4 planes flying over eastern U.S. were hijacked by suicide attackers. They used aircraft as guided missiles to crash into landmark buildings in New York and Washington, D.C. Let's revisit the timeline. The first strike happened when an American Airlines Boeing 767 with 92 people on board, including 5 hijackers, smashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Leaving a giant hole in the building's facade. Thick smoke billowed into the sky from the tower's upper floors. The second tower was hit just a few minutes later. A United Airlines Boeing 767 making a Boston-Los Angeles connection with 65 people on board, including 5 hijackers, hit the South Tower of the World Trade Center, sparking a massive explosion. The third plane, an American Airlines Boeing 757, making a Washington-Dulles-Los Angeles connection with 64 people on board, including 5 hijackers, destroyed the Pentagon's western face, the U.S. military's giant headquarters just outside the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The fourth strike happened when a United Airlines Boeing 757 traveling from Newark to San Francisco with 44 people on board, including 4 hijackers, crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. For the flight United 93, the hijackers' target was never clear, but with a further flying time of just 20 minutes to Washington, it has been suggested it was on course for the Capitol or even the White House. What is known, however, is that some of the passengers who had learned of the twin tragedies in New York on their mobile phones overpowered the hijackers. Terrorists killed 2,977 people. All 246 passengers and crew aboard the 4 planes were killed. At the Twin Towers, 2,606 people died, then or later, of injuries. At the Pentagon, 125 people were killed. When the first plane struck, an estimated 17,400 people were in the towers. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center crumbled like a pack of cards in a deluge of debris and dust. Nobody survived in the North Tower. 18 people in the South Tower escaped. Citizens of 77 different countries were among the casualties. Thousands of people were injured or later developed illnesses connected to the attacks, including firefighters who had worked in toxic debris. On the 48th story of a new office building, Bruno Dellinger looks down on what might have been his tomb. The site of the fallen World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. Dellinger was working in Tower 1 on the morning of September 11th, 2001.
I saw a plane coming. Mostly I heard the roar of the engines coming in at full speed. I raised my head, and right at that moment, the plane hit Tower 1 with an astounding force. Then the building started to shake.
Dellinger made it out using an emergency staircase just in time. Jack Grandcola's pregnant wife, Lauren Grandcolas, was on Flight 93, which crashed in a field after it was hijacked. All 44 people on board were killed.
My name is Jack Grandcolas. My wife, Lauren Grandcolas, was on United Flight 93. This anniversary is big because it's 20 years. But every year it's a gut punch. There's no question. It's, we'll live with the scars the rest of our lives.
Jack Grandcolas said he tried going to the annual memorial ceremony in Pennsylvania for the first 2 years, but found the experience overwhelming. Instead, he would now go for a walk on the beach, which his wife loved.
Over the years, I would just try to do something quiet and solemn, understated. Lauren would have liked that. Go sit by the ocean. Go take a walk through the woods. Go for a bike ride. Maybe get on a sailboat. And then I would end the day by going down to her Lauren place in 4th Street and leave some flowers and note and read the notes and the flowers that other people had left in her memory. And I think that tranquility helped me get through that mounting pressure and anxiety of what they call an anniversary.
To ease the pain of losing loved ones, many families donated belongings of victims to the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, located in the World Trade Center complex in New York City. Thousands of such personal artifacts tell the story of those who lost their lives.
So we have a gravesite for her. We don't have a gravesite for Sean. Artifacts become very important. And artifacts are the facts that someone lived. They are the facts that you can touch. And for Sean, he had many sides to him. He was a great chef, but he was also a weekend carpenter. His tool belt and his tools were given to the 9/11 Museum. And to me and to our family, this is a very important side of Sean Rooney. This is his building side. He loved to do this. He built things, he constructed things. It is a perfect antidote to the destruction of that day.
These artifacts help preserve the memories of those who died. Their stories continue to live on at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. An Islamist extremist network called Al-Qaeda planned the attacks from Afghanistan, led by Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda blamed the US and its allies for conflicts in the Muslim world. 19 people carried out the hijackings, working in 3 teams of 5 and 1 of 4. Some of them had lived in the United States for more than a year and had taken flying lessons at American commercial flight schools. 4 were trained pilots. Each was accompanied by 3 to 5 muscle hijackers who overwhelmed passengers and crew while they took control of their respective aircraft. The group, which came from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Lebanon, and Egypt, was chosen by Al-Qaeda leaders in Afghanistan in 2000. Osama bin Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden founded Al-Qaeda in 1988. He was from a wealthy Saudi family, but settled in Afghanistan to set up a base for his jihadist group. The Taliban ruled the country for 5 years between 1996 and 2001. Its leader, Mohammed Omar, formed ties with bin Laden as he plotted an attack on the United States. Although their ideologies differed, both groups' beliefs were rooted in extreme Islam and a hatred of the West. On the 2nd of May 2011, almost 10 years after the 9/11 terror attacks, America avenged its citizens by neutralizing the world's most wanted terrorist, Osama bin Laden. We recall the operation and the manhunt that led to it. After a decade-long manhunt, in the year 2010, the U.S. intelligence agency was able to track a man who was one of bin Laden's closest couriers. He was found in a large, highly secured compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The compound's extensive security features prompted suspicion that it could be bin Laden's hideout. The then U.S. President Barack Obama authorized a small special operations team known as SEAL Team 6 to carry out the Abbottabad raid. The team began their 1-month-long training on a replica of the compound, and on May 2nd, 2011, 2 stealth Black Hawk helicopters carrying 25 Navy SEALs took off from Afghanistan and reached the Abbottabad hideout. Enabled with stealth technology, these helicopters avoided any kind of detection in the airspace around the operation area. The U.S. SEALs breached the outer walls of the compound and fought their way through the ground floor. After killing Osama's closest aide, the team moved to the 3rd floor to zero in on the target. Osama bin Laden was located and shot in the head above the left eye. The entire operation was completed in 40 minutes with no American casualties. SEAL Team 6 also destroyed the chopper that crashed. It flew back with the world's deadliest man in a body bag.
Good evening. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. It was nearly 10 years ago that a bright September day was darkened by the worst attack on the American people in our history. The images of 9/11 are seared into our national memory.
On the 5th of September 2024, ahead of 9/11 commemorations, the National Security Agency revealed aspects it never disclosed before. It opened up about its role in helping the U.S. government track down Osama bin Laden, the Al-Qaeda founder and terrorist. In a new podcast series called No Such Podcast, current and former senior NSA officials who were involved in the search for Osama bin Laden describe how the highly secretive operation unfolded before culminating in the 2011 raid on a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, where bin Laden had hidden. Listen in.
Let's start with that. Al-Qaeda communications. How do we discover and disrupt terrorist plots, targeting the U.S. or elsewhere? So we had leads. We could get leads from, let's say, materials that the 9/11 hijackers had used, that FBI had. We could get leads from other agencies and so on. And we recognized that this was such a complex problem that we weren't going to be able to do it by ourselves. And Intel is like building a jigsaw puzzle, certainly, but it's a jigsaw puzzle with a twist. And what I mean by that, this particular jigsaw puzzle, you may have a few pieces on the table in front of you. You may have some on the carpet. The dog's eating some. Some are on the other side of the street. Some are on the other side of town. Some are at the bottom of the ocean. Some don't exist. Your job as an Intel analyst is to find as many of those pieces as you can, by whatever methodology you can, working with partners or others. And then you've got to put together those pieces without a box top telling you how they go together. So it was a mosaic of different data pieces being pulled together to present the likelihood that bin Laden could very well be in that compound. And we didn't know for 100% certainty until actually the raid took place.
It has been revealed that on the day U.S. military forces raided the hideout complex in Abbottabad, only around 50 people of the tens of thousands of NSA employees knew of the plan to find then the world's most wanted man. While Osama was considered the mastermind of the attacks, Pakistani terrorist Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was the operational planner. Mohammed came up with the calculated innovation of using hijacked planes to attack the United States. And Al-Qaeda provided the personnel, money, and logistical support to execute the operation. Regarded as one of Al-Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden's most trusted and intelligent lieutenants, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had dedicated his life to plotting against the West. Mohammed, also known by his initials KSM, was captured in Pakistan in March 2003. He then spent 3 years in secret CIA prisons, before arriving in 2006 at the US Navy base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Now around 60 years old, the trained engineer was involved in a string of major plots against the United States, where he attended university. 9/11 remains his biggest and deadliest operation to date. "20 years after Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was arrested on the 31st of July this year, he and 2 accomplices reached a deal with prosecutors, which would have reportedly seen them avoid a death penalty trial. Such a proposal was detailed by prosecutors in a letter last year, but divided the families of people killed in the 9/11 attacks, with some still wanting the defendants to face the gallows. After beginning negotiations in March 2022, the 3 men agreed to plead guilty to all charges, including the murder of the people listed in the charging sheet. But 2 days later, Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin revoked plea deals with 3 suspects. This is what Lloyd Austin said in a memorandum addressed to Susan Escalier, who oversees the Pentagon's Guantanamo War Court. "I have determined that in light of the significance of the decision to enter into pretrial agreements with the accused, responsibility for such a decision should rest with me. I hereby withdraw from the 3 pretrial agreements that you signed on July 31st, 2024 in the above-referenced case." That's not all. Austin overruled and removed the military judge who oversaw the deal. The government faced the difficult challenge of advancing a case that had stalled over the 2 decades since Mohammed's capture in Pakistan in 2003. The military trial against Mohammed and his alleged co-conspirators was delayed for years, as the US tried to determine how to handle the issue of torture used against Mohammed and others at secret CIA prisons. The issue posed a legal problem for prosecutors about whether evidence obtained through torture was admissible in court. The trial was set to begin in January 2021, but delays brought about by the resignation of 2 judges and the coronavirus pandemic pushed the date back again. The Biden administration has made it a priority to close the Guantanamo Bay detention facility in Cuba, where the defendants are currently held, repatriating several detainees who were no longer considered significant threats to national security. But dozens of detainees, like Mohammed, remain in the facility. The anniversary of the 9/11 attack brings back haunting memories of the fateful day. It has been 23 years, but the painful recollections refuse to fade. In many ways, 9/11 reshaped how Americans begin to think of terror, war, and national security. However, the threat of terrorism still looms large, not just in the US, but across the world. The ultimate goal of national powers to eliminate terrorism remains an unresolved quest.